Very good morning, a beautiful Saturday that God has given us, wherever you're watching or listening to me. My name is Pastor Ben, and I want to invite you today for this podcast that we began last week. The Saturday's podcast, whereby we will be discussing ideas, we will be discussing topics that I believe that are very important in our society. And today we are going to have a continuation of what we began talking about, the Gen Zs, the Generation Z. And I hope that last week's podcast was a blessing to you. So join together with me even today as we continue with this podcast. And I want to ask you that you can share this podcast with your friends, with your networks, even as we continue and even as we begin. But before that, I want to play some music. We have a guest, a virtual guest that we are trying to connect with. So meanwhile, keep sharing this podcast with your friends.
Kutoka zile studio za Pambio Worship Music, tumekuja kumsifu Bwana. Asifiwe Bwana. Baraka zishuke kama chomba, zikuangukie, neema yake izidi kukuongoza. Usiaibike dunia ikikuchokoza, kumbuka Yesu anaona. Ukifeel unaogopa, wacha kupiganie. Kama siwe Baba, ningekuwa wapi leo? Kama siwe Baba, nisingekuwa hapa leo. Naona niwe Baba, najua niwe Baba. Majaribu ni kwa muda, mwishowe utashinda. Hata unapolemewa, kumbuka ulikotoka. Bwana hatakuangusha, yeye ni mwamba imara. Ukijipata kwenye noma, yeye atakuokoa. Kama siwe Baba, ningekuwa wapi leo? Kama siwe Baba, nisingekuwa hapa leo. Naona niwe Baba, najua niwe Baba. Kama siwe, ningekuwa wapi leo?
Absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way to begin our podcast today. I want to thank God so much, even for this time that He has given us. And today we are keeping on the same topic that we began sometimes last week on Saturday. And we are trusting that the Lord is going to help us even to, as we discuss this, still trying to connect with my guests. But meanwhile, we are here to continue with the topic. And I want to just bring an introduction to what we are talking about today. We are talking about being a Gen Z, a Generation Z in 2024. And as of 2024, Generation Z continues to significantly shape culture and technology, leaving an undeniable mark on various industries and social norms. Here is a breakdown, of course, of what we are talking about today. And the first one is a culture shift. I know that all of us, and especially in this country, Kenya, I know that there are other people who are watching this podcast from different regions of the world. But here in Kenya, I think for the last about 3 months, there has been an awakening where the Generation Z is concerned, and nobody knew what was cooking, nobody knew how it was going to come out. But because of what we are discussing about today, being a Gen Z in 2024, where we're talking about self-awareness, self-discovery, talking about people that have gone to the point of knowing their space in the society, and it has its impact, and we have felt that impact in this place, or rather in this country. And I want to believe that even wherever you are watching or listening to me on this podcast, you have your own stories of how this generation has discovered, or should we say rediscovered themselves, because Z's have been there ever since, and in times on memorial. But we are having a generation that is rising up to the awakening of their status and the awakening of who they are, discovering who they are. And today we are going to talk about this. And I want to trust that we're going to have a great moment, even as we connect with my guest today. I want to trust that this is going to be possible, and we are going to have an awesome time. So before that, I want to bring this into to your attention. One, that cultural shift. There has been a cultural shift where the Generation Z is concerned, and we're talking about social justice and advocacy. And without a doubt, the most socially conscious generation is the Gen Zs. They are socially conscious of who they are, and I'm telling you, it is something that we are coming to the realization, and it's gonna be a great, 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 great impact. It's going to have a great impact even as we continue with this. Now, so there has been a cultural shift. I do believe some of us, when we were in that age of teenagers up to about 1920s, we were not able to discover ourselves of who we were in terms of cultural shifts, and social justice, and being an advocate of what we believe and what is important in the society. And Gen Zs are having a shift where social justice and advocacy is concerned, especially here in Kenya. We've had a time, as I said, the last 3 months, whereby it has been like a wave of awareness. Though it turned out to be something different, but the main thing that the Gen Zs came up with, it was talking. They were talking about social justice and advocacy. Yeah. And of course, in this, they use different platforms. We're talking about social media, talking about platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, to mobilize themselves and to make themselves aware of who they are, their advocacy, about social norms, injustices, and even in the society, in governance and stuff like that. And this has been, of course, had a positive impact by itself. And as we continue to talk about cultural shifts, we can see, the tremendous impact that this is having in the society. We want today to talk about the positive part of it, because it has its own positive part of it. And I want to trust that even as we continue to unveil these, then we're going to be talking about their rights. We're talking about mental health, ability to mobilize online, because this we have seen this in the last 3 months of in this case in this nation. And apparently this also went like a wave all over in other nations. We've seen the uprising even in the West. We've seen the uprising in Europe. We've seen the uprising in other nations where the Generation Z is concerned. Is it a new trend, or is it a shift of culture? And I would say yes, it is a shift of culture whereby young people are there to be seen and not heard. That time, I think, is over. That time is over, and it's over. And we are having a generation that is enlightened. We are having a generation that is having every details available for them, using of technology and social media and influencers, and kind of such things. And this is bringing out a different norm in terms of who the Gen Zs are concerned. And they are saying, we are not here just to be seen, but we are here to bring social justice. We are here to bring advocacy into the things that we think they matter, not only to us, but also to the generations that are following. And I can tell you, and I will tell you, that in this nation for the last 3 months, we've had an impact of this. And I think it is something that is of tremendous importance, even as we continue with this. Now, the other thing when it comes to cultural shift, it is authenticity and transparency. One of the things that the young generation were agitating for in our country here in Kenya, it was about being authentic in leadership, and also transparency in leadership. Unlike previous generations who embraced the carefully curated online personas, Gen Zs value authenticity. They are authentic. They are not fearful. They are not afraid of who is not going to, who is going to do what, or who is not going to do what. Their authenticity is so real. And I am telling you, as a generation that is in this nation, we have had an issue, and we've had an impact on that. Authenticity and transparency, holding leaders accountable, holding leaders transparent in terms of how they execute their mandate as public leaders, where governance is concerned, and not only in the social life, not only in the national governments, not in the political governance, but also in the social and also in the religious governance. And this has led to the rise of more transparent influencers also, and brands. We are seeing a lot of Gen Zs coming up as ambassadors of brands and influencers, and this is having a big impact. The reason is because there is, as we talked about it, social justice, and also that ability to connect, through social media, and the impact of that social media that has had a very positive impact on how they communicate, how they mobilize themselves. And this is great. So if you're there and you're listening to me, you can get into the comment section, and maybe you could tell me about some of the things that you're thinking they are positive where the Gen Z is concerned. And most of you are talking about being a Gen Z in 2024. What does it mean? It means being authentic and transparent. Yeah, it means that being people who have a mental awareness. Of course, we are having mental breakdowns because of everything that comes. Positivity also has its negative concussions and or rather connection, and at the same time, the Gen Zs, they are also part of the bigger number statistically, where they are experiencing mental breakdown, mental health, issues. And even as we continue talking about being a Gen Z in 2024, they are people who are having, awareness of who they are. And some of them, they are also taking care of themselves where mental health is concerned. Sadly, most of them are not able to do this because the influence of social media, technology, and all these influencers, sometimes they want to make them feel as if they are super human beings and super young people, with this high tech and stuff like that, which sometimes it turns out to be unreal. And when it comes to the reality of matters, that's where mental health issues are concerned. Are coming in. So Gen Z has normalized discussions around mental health, removing much of the stigma associated with it. We are still trying to connect with my guest, but meanwhile, we are continuing with our program, even as we look forward to what God has for us in Jesus' mighty name. Amen and amen. So, wherever you're watching or listening to me, kindly get in touch and let's discuss this. Now, they are also having therapy apps, mindfulness practices, and open conversations about anxiety, depression, and burnout, because these are the mainstream, issues that are driving Gen Z's advocacy for emotional well-beings. And as we're discussing these, it is important to understand that we are talking about being a Gen Z in 2024, where there's a lot of influence on all over, all sides. And when it comes to mental health, they are being very advocated. They have that advocacy because of the things that are happening. And I'm trying to connect with my guest, but is having an issue with the connection. So meanwhile, we continue. Um, so that advocacy where mental issue is concerned is very important because, for example, you're having a Gen Z in 2024 who is coming from a background that is not well informed, well up financially, economically, and we are also having a Gen Z that they don't know even the price of bread or the price of unga, the price of meat, some of these commodities. And now the imbalance in these status also is having a big mental problem, issues where the less privileged want to be like their influencers who are seeming to be having it all packed it together, not knowing that the economical status are having the differences in terms of how much they input in their influence, in their cultural shift and all this. And it is important, any Gen Z who is listening to me, I know these are things that you're passing through. I know these are things that you are asking yourself. Yes, I can see my peers in 2024 are having big cars, having money and this dressing and all this, and the cultural shock is quite rampant, and that's what is happening, influencing some of them to become drug addict and con men. And because this is also the same generation actually that is using technology to bring to do crimes, talking about cyber crimes and talking about the frauds and stuff like that, because there is that influence of becoming, an influencer or becoming what is not reality in terms of status. So these are things that we need to keep on talking about when we are talking about Gen Zs in 2024. Now, let's talk about fashion and aesthetics. Fashion, when we are talking about fashion, there are fusing things. I know if a generation that was perhaps passed on about 10 years ago, they would rise up right now. They would really be ashamed of the dressings of our young people. Yeah, because you know, when you are having jeans that are shattered and torn in the on the knees and wherever, even some of them on the buttocks, that is fashion for them. Yeah, Gen Zs, that's fashion for them. But is it authentic? It is a shift of culture, as we are talking about. I'm saying this generation that passed on last two that 10 years ago, if they would rise up from their graves, they would really wonder what has happened to our generation. Are they so poor that they are putting on shattered jeans? But hey, it is their fashion. It is a shift. It is a social shift. Yeah. And perhaps I'll tell you, some of those jeans are even very expensive than normal jeans. Yeah. So we are talking about nostalgia and aesthetic fusion. Gen Z loves to remix past trends, blending, the Y2K and grunge and 90s, those, dress fashions and all that. Fashion isn't just about looking good to a Gen Z in 2024. It's about self-expression. They are expressing themselves. And I would say even some of these actually the flip side of it is a rebellion kind of, you want to rebel out of the norm. You want to go a little bit outside the norm to see what would happen if I extended this to another, a dimension. And to some extent, it's like, it comes out like maybe and possibly it would come out like a rebellion, if I would say, in a way. So we need to be able to understand the Gen Zs in 2024. If you're listening to me and you are a generation 2024, perhaps you could give me some inputs on what we are talking about today. Now let's talk about also some of them, of course, they are also having stability, sustainability and experimental, thrifting and all this. And then there is also the gender neutral fashion. The gender neutral version. We're talking about Gen Z's more fluid approach to gender has reshaped the fashion industry. Gender neutral clothing and the rejection of rigid gender norms. You realize that sometimes guys would put clothes that are looking like, for women, and for girls, and girls are putting jeans and jackets, and sometimes even hair dressing. You would think that a guy is a guy, is not a guy, is a girl, and all this. We're talking about this shifting in norms and shifting in social status. We are the Gen Zs in 2024 now. I think it's imperative that the other generations that are rising up and the older generation, they don't have a culture shock of what is happening, because we would, blame social media, because as people say, the world has turned out to be a global village. Whatever is happening in New York, it won't even, you won't even have like an hour before it gets all over, spread all over. And this is what is happening. The power of social media, the power of technology, the power of influence. And this all is tagged into, to the Gen Zs. And this is what we are talking about. So, because it is important we understand them even before we begin to condemn them, we begin to judge them, we begin to call them names, we begin to see the norm as a societal, death trap, and all that, the caps, the captivating ideas that they're coming with. We got to understand this so that we are able to give them their room and be able to help them, perhaps not to go to the extent of self-destruction, but again to come to the point of realizing that as much as they are agitating for that space, coming out from influence on technology and stuff like that. There is also the other side, the flip side of it, whereby you live in a community, and the community is not only a Gen Z community, it's a community with all kind of status and stuff, and there has to be a balance where this is concerned. Now let's talk about technological influence. This is where the problem is, and this is where the cutting edge is. And we're talking about the contents that are happening in TikTok. We're talking about shorts in YouTube, and we're talking about all these medias that the Gen Zs are consuming. And perhaps we would be very quick to show a blame where this consumption of the content is concerned. But as we are saying, if some of these young people are even learning trends and career uh, uh, you know uh, topics on internet, perhaps we also need to know that at the same time, that's the reason why they are also learning all these other things, because we won't say that we limit them to one area of content consumption, because all this is all kept together on the internet, and we blame the internet if that would be the case. But we cannot blame internet, because there is human beings have that social craving of becoming better each and every day. Today, if you fly on the latest planes, and even sometimes you wouldn't understand whether such a big machine can fly in the air. But perhaps we could go back to the time that the first planes were invented by the Wright brothers, those early years. If those guys could rise up today from their grave, they would marvel at what that beautiful idea, that noble idea, how it translated into this massive technological influence and mega stretches that are happening right now. So we cannot complain and say that technology is to blame, but technology is here to help us become better. Human beings have that nudging to become better each and every day. There is that invention, traits that is created by God in human beings, and it's important for us to understand. This is very, very, very important for us to become to have a better world, a better living place. But of course, it has also its own bad part of it, and this is what we are talking about. So being a 24 Gen Z then means that all these fashions and technological influences are all roundabout, and perhaps you would think that even those who are in the village without internet, but they still have gadgets there. I don't know what is happening, because even I would say, if you are listening to me and maybe you are an older generation, you would perhaps attest to this fact with me, that a child who gets born and maybe in about 6 months, 1 year, their minds are so much open, and their minds are so much grown into technology, that even a 3-year-old is able to operate a phone. They are able to get into some sites that you never know. And this young boy, this young girl has not gone to school. So what is happening? Perhaps it is to say that technology, and I don't know what else, that probably these guys are being born with a technical mind, and they know how. It is just appalling, the expression of knowledge that the young people are having. So as we continue to discuss about this, I think that is important to know that the Gen Zs in 2024 are a generation that is yearning, is a generation that is yearning for technology, is yearning to become better. Now, when we are talking about this, we are talking about the rise of AI and digital tools. Some of you may not know what AI is. In artificial intelligence, it is the norm of the day today, and this is what is happening with the Gen Zs. If perhaps you're not aware of AI and how to use this in, digital tools, I'm telling you that you are out of it. You are out of it. You are outdated, and that's why perhaps every Gen Z is trying as much as they can to be able to learn about this. And I am also wondering whether in a generation to come, whether we will have plumbers, we will have masons, we will have people who are using their hands to do work, because the generation that we're having now, they just want to be tech gurus. And this has also a big problem, because all of us, we cannot fit on the technology. We cannot fit. Maybe we could use technology for other aspects of life, other issues, a technical masonry, a technical mechanic, a technical this and that, because this is also what is happening in China. Young people growing up knowing technology, and becoming better in their spheres of influence. If it's is a bridge maker, that's why the best bridges and the best roads, even here in Kenya, they are being made by the Chinese, and they are using technology. They are using technology. So that's where I believe that's where we are going. Now let's talk about multitasking and hyperconnectivity. Gen Zs have mastered multitasking across multiple devices, balancing schoolwork, gaming, social life, and side hustles simultaneously. Yes, some of them, especially not the lazy ones, because also we having Gen Zs who are lazy. They cannot even, as we talked about, and Dr. Kathy last week expounded on this so much. We have Gen Zs who don't even know how to make their beds. We have Gen Zs, young people who don't know how to make food even for themselves, because everything is technology and labor for them. They would rather. Today we have young people, even working class, who cannot wash even their dishes. They cannot wash their clothes, their duvets. They have to call what we call here in Kenya a mamafua. A mamafua are the women who will come, wash their dishes, make their beds, do all this sort of work, because we have a generation also that is high tech in technology, but also lazy in terms of what they are doing. And there has to be balance. Gen Zs in 2024, there has to be a balance, because unless we have this in society, then we are going to have a society that is lacking so much in terms of depth. Yeah, in terms of depth, we could have everything in the fingertips, but also we need depth, we need foundation. Because as I said, without that foundation, then it is going to be very difficult to have this, longevity of the generation that we are having, because you're not going to be the Gen Zs all through. Yeah, years are coming whereby you're going to usher in another generation, and then you enter into another generation. The foundation that you are having right now is very key and is very important for us. Now let's talk about gaming culture and esports. Talking about Gen Z's on their PCs and all that, and those gaming as a social hub. I understand that you can play a game with somebody who is in South America while you are here in Kenya. We're talking about all this, and it's amazing. It's amazing how this is going to be. Looks like my guest is not able to continue, to get into the program. Nevertheless, we continue. We continue. Hallelujah. Yes, yes, yes. So we're talking about these esports and stuff like that. And now let's talk about environmental impact and sustainability. And I think I'll end at that point. When we are talking about environmental impact and sustainability, eco-conscious consumeration, Gen Z is driving demand for sustainable products and ethical business practices. They are pushing for eco-friendly packaging, cruelty-free beauty products, and ethically sourced materials in fashion. This shift is reshaping industries to prioritize environmental sustainability in their offerings. Minimalism and digital detox, despite their hyperconnectivity. Gen Z also embraces minimalism and is more likely to engage in digital detoxes. They recognize the toll that constant screen time can take on mental health and are more likely to balance it with the mindfulness practices, nature, and time spent offline. And this is important. So if you're a Gen Z and you're listening to me, you need to know that it's not all the time that you will be on that screen, on that phone, and doing stuff. And that's, as we talked about it last week, these forms of course are bringing also health issues of obesity, lack of practice, and stuff like that. And you realize a very young person is becoming so old because they're not taking themselves care of their health, their physical health. As a Gen Z in 2024, you need to know that it's important to balance between, the social ethics and whatever you're doing on social media, and your influence and being on TikTok, but at the same time, get physical, go for road trips, cycling, some of you, if you can go to the shamba and dig and cultivate, it's very important. I have seen some Gen Zs who are good farmers and doing very well in terms of farming, not just being on the screen and doing virtual jobs and stuff like that, but also using technology in the best way possible to become a better influencer, a better, young person in terms of what you're able to do as a product, as a final product. And I think with that, we come to the end of what we are discussing today. Being a Gen Z in 2024, one, it is very demanding in terms of social or media and stuff like that, and also the wellness of who that person is concerned. So, hey, as my parting shot, I want to say, being a Gen Z in 2024 is a blessing from God, but at the same time, it is imperative that you take care of yourself. Whatever you need in life, you need to know that it will not come in a platter, in a plate of silver. It will not just come. You've got to labor for it. You've got to, become realistic. You've got to become real in terms of what you are getting for and how to go about it. And I think this is the most important thing for all of us, because we want to make a better society, not only for this generation, but also for the generations to come. My name is Pastor Ben, and this has been a topical issue that we are dealing with on this podcast. And as I see you on the next topic, I want to say shalom and bye bye for now. Please, if you have ideas that we can make this program better, if you're out there and you want to be you want to participate in this is very possible, any topic, and we are here. Just DM me on my Facebook page, and we will be able to take it up from there. Otherwise, for shalom, have a wonderful weekend, and be the best Gen Zs that God has purpose for you to be.